Hello, I'm Seth Stewart from the Miami University Alumni Association. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar in celebration of Women's History Month. We'd like to thank the Sue J. Henry Center for Pre-Law Education for their partnership and support with this event. Our webinar today is celebrating Women's History Month with women on the judicial bench. And our panelists today are three of our Black alumni who serve on the judicial bench. First, we have Judge Cassandra Collier-Williams, class of 1979. Judge Collier-Williams was elected judge of Cuyahoga County Common Pleas in 2012. Judge Collier-Williams graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science and Government from Miami University. During her time as undergrad at Miami, she served as president of the Black Student Action Association, which she helped to bring in prominent Black speakers to campus. Judge Collier-Williams received her Juris Doctorate from Cleveland State University's Marshall School of Law in 1990. As an attorney, she worked as an associate for Forbes and Associates, and she later opened her own very successful law firm of the law office of Cassandra Collier-Williams, LLC. She practiced law in federal, state, and municipal courts, and Judge Williams practiced criminal defense law and civil law. And she was awarded the Champion of Justice Award by the Ohio Association of Criminal Defense, and the Certificate of Recognition by the Ohio Supreme Court. Her son, Yao Williams, graduated from Miami University in 2006. Next, we have United States Magistrate Judge Dana Douglas, class 1997. Judge Dana Marie Douglas currently serves in the Eastern District of Louisiana. As Judge Douglas attended Loyola University College of Law, where she received her Juris Doctor in New Orleans in 2000. Upon graduation, she served as a law clerk in the United States District Court, Eastern District of Louisiana, to the Honorable Judge Ivan L.R. LaMille. And Judge Douglas is also a former shareholder and partner of the law firm Lisco and Lewis, where her practice focused in the areas of energy, product liability, and intellectual property litigation in the state and federal courts of Louisiana and across a wide variety of industry sectors. Judge Dana Marie Douglas assumed her role as magistrate judge on January 7th, 2019, as she earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Black World Studies at Miami. And as an undergrad student at Miami, she became a member of the Lambda Mu chapter of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Also joining us today is Magistrate Judge Carmen Henderson, class of 2007. Magistrate Judge Henderson was sworn in on July 1st, 2020, as the United States Magistrate Judge for the United States District Court, Northern District of Ohio. Prior to her appointment, she was an assistant U.S. State's Attorney in the Criminal Division of the United States Attorney's Office in Cleveland since 2014, where she's assigned to the white collar unit. She prosecuted various financial crimes, including wire fraud, tax fraud, securities fraud, bankruptcy fraud, and bank fraud. Magistrate Judge Carmen Henderson graduated from Miami with a Bachelor of Science degree in accountancy. And as an undergrad, she joined the Zeta Mu chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and participated in the Miami mock trial team. She earned a Juris Doctorate from the Ohio State University's Morris College of Law in 2012. So thank you, judges, for joining us. And also, I'd like to introduce our moderator today, Allison Aylor, class of 93. And Allison is currently a Senior Assistant Attorney General in the Colorado Department of Law, working in tort litigation. As a tort litigation attorney, Allison defends the state and its agencies and high-ranking public officials and other state employees in the civil lawsuits for money damages. And prior to joining to the Department of Law, Allison was in the private practice for 10 years, as she is a member of the Alumni Advisory Board of the Pre-Law program at Miami. And Allison earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in history from Miami University. So let's go ahead and get started. And remember, you can still submit questions or comments during the live session by clicking Ask a Question below the video. And without further ado, Allison, if you can go ahead and start.
Hey, Allison, you are muted.
I'm sorry. Yes, we have some questions that we wanted to go ahead and pose to the judges. We have a variety of questions that could relate to those who are students and may be interested in becoming lawyers and later becoming justices or judges, and also some questions for those who are currently lawyers and practicing in various parts of the United States. So one question I'd like to pose to each of the judges to respond to is, what can you tell us a little bit about your journey towards becoming a judge? I guess should I pick what Magistrate Judge Douglas, would you like to start?
Sure, I don't mind doing that. So my journey to becoming a lawyer, I believe I first became interested in being a lawyer somewhere along my tenure in high school. I come from a law enforcement family. I have an uncle who was the first Black superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department here in New Orleans. He has a sibling who was a member of the Drug Enforcement Agency, and my mother, who is the youngest of that bunch of 8, worked in our local Orleans Civil Sheriff's Office. And so I'd always been exposed to and around the law. And in addition to having those family members who were involved in some aspect of law, I just felt like judges had a lot of sort of influence over, day-to-day activities and things that I was reading about in the newspaper, things that may have involved friends of mine, involved in family situations or what have you. And I really enjoyed being involved in that. My family was in law enforcement. I never could see myself running around with a badge and a gun and a pair of stilettos. So I decided to try to take a different turn. Enjoyed speech and debate in high school. My high school yearbook says that I wanted to be a juvenile court judge. So really, when I started at Miami, my major was actually, and I graduated in social work and Black World Studies. And so, although I thought I wanted to take that route, I ended up going into a corporate defense firm, completely different from what I set out to do when I started law school. But I maintained my interest because it centered me, to be honest with you, to be candid with you, and public and community service. And so I always found a way to stay involved with various team court programs and things of that nature. I practiced law for approximately 20 years with the same law firm, with Lisco and Lewis Law Firm here in New Orleans. And then I think maybe because of the public interest aspect in my DNA, or because I wanted to get back to that place of being a neutral, where I didn't have to be sort of this dogged advocate for one side or another, but really be able to sit in the middle and listen to the facts and become abreast of the law and really make a decision from a neutral standpoint instead of just sort of advocating, just from one side of the bar. I found that to be more intriguing. And so, I decided to put my name in the hat for the United States Magistrate position, and here I am.
Thank you. And Judge Henderson, would you mind addressing that same question for us?
Sure. I have known for as long as I can remember that I always wanted to be an attorney. I always just wanted to stand in a courtroom and argue my case. When I was young, I would watch things like Matlock with my mom and my uncle and like that, even as someone who was 5, it was something that interested me. So that was always what I wanted to do and knew I wanted to go to law school. My mother was very cautious, though, because she had wanted to go to law school and she had graduated in political science and decided not to go to law school. So she really encouraged me that even if I wanted to go to major in something, that if I decided not to take that career path, where I would be able to get a job. And so when I came to Miami, I had always been good with numbers. So I decided to, major in accounting. So I became an accounting major, graduated from Miami, and worked at Deloitte & Touche, one of the big 4 accounting firms, got my CPA license. But what I did do, knowing that I always wanted to be an attorney, is I took the LSAT before I graduated and just held my scores. And so then after I worked at Deloitte for 2 years, I then applied to law school and went to Moritz College of Law. And there, I kind of didn't know. It was between would I go back into do the firm thing, but to me, it always felt if I did that, I could have just stayed an accountant and worked in an accounting firm forever. So I knew that wasn't going to get me into a courtroom. So I really wanted something that was going to feed my passion and get me into a courtroom. And initially, I was the opposite of Judge Douglas. I always thought that I wanted to be a defense attorney. I was not someone who wanted to be on the side of law enforcement. I wanted to be a defense attorney. But I really started thinking about it in law school and started thinking about who really has the discretion and who really has power. And I felt that was a prosecutor. And I felt that it was really important that we have diversity in that area of law. I think so many, Black attorneys and other minority attorneys think about going into the areas of defense that I thought about and don't really think about being a prosecutor. And I think it's important for us to have that representation. So that was a goal of mine. And to set out on that goal, I really talked to people about how to do it. And someone talked to me about clerking. So I decided to apply for a clerkship, and I clerked for Judge Solomon Oliver Jr. here on the Northern District of Ohio. And after I clerked for him for a year, before that, I did work at a firm briefly. So I worked at a firm, Bory Sater Seymour Pease in Columbus for a year. But after my clerkship, I started applying to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I got a position. I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Northern District of Ohio. And so I worked in that office for about 6 years. And then after those 6 years, there was a position open here in Youngstown. A magistrate judge was retiring. And I decided to apply, and thankfully I got the position. And so now here I am.
Thank you. And Judge Collier-Williams, would you please tell us about your journey to the bench?
Well, mine's a lot longer than theirs, I think. But at any rate, it started with my mom saying that, was telling me what I was going to be. So she would say, "You're going to be a lawyer." And, I'm 5 years old or 6 years old. I didn't know what a lawyer was, but I knew that's what my mom said I wanted to be. So after a while, I started saying, "I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer." So even though I had a lot of other passions, music primarily, I think I started at Miami having some music scholarships. I became a lawyer, and I worked at a small firm for about 10 years or so, and then I opened my own firm, and and in that firm, I did a wide range of law, all different types. I was in federal court, state court, muni court. We did everything from defense work to a lot of personal injury to something as simple as victims of crime, advocating for them. And I knew I kind of wanted to give back a little bit more to society. And I thought that there was a need. So I'm not from Cleveland. I moved to Cleveland in 1987. I'm from Springfield, Ohio. And on the general division here in Cleveland, there are 34 judges. And out of the 34, at any given time, there may be one or two African Americans. So in 2010, I thought about running. And I think at that time, there may have been 2 African Americans on the bench out of 34. And I ran in 10, I didn't get in. And in 12, I did it again. I ran, and this time I won. I beat an incumbent, and I love it, actually. And it's important because we are able to represent to the defendants and to the people who come before you that there's somebody there that looks like you. And it is very important. And briefly, that's how I got here, because there's a need, and I'm trying to fulfill that need.
Out here in Colorado, it has recently hit the newspapers that there has been racial discrimination against a few Hispanic judges within our bench. And then also there has been some gender discrimination that's come into light in the newspapers out here. How has your experience in your jurisdiction been as a Black female judge? And I'll direct that one to Judge Collier-Williams to start for us.
Okay. Well, racism exists. Absolutely. Sexism exists. Absolutely. I remember a lot of times as an attorney facing racism and sexism. And as a judge, you do too. You face it. And you just have to be very, very firm in what you accept and what you do not accept. I am, I think people will consider me a very fair judge, but don't play with me either. Don't try to talk down to me. Don't try to, make some sort of snide racist remark. None of that plays well with me. So I've been really kind of fortunate because a lot of those racist things don't really come in front of me. Now, they may think about it, but they know they better not voice it in front of me. I remember, and this is a cute story, when I first got on the bench in 2012, Barack Obama was president, and I put a picture in my courtroom of Barack Obama. Now, understand that in your courtroom, I don't know what's like in federal. Yeah, I do know what's like in federal court. You guys can fix your courtroom up and your chambers up any way you want. And it's the same way in state court. So some judges have foreign flags flying in their courtroom because they're from Italy or they're from Ireland. That's a big one, Ireland. And I put the president of the United States in my courtroom. You would have thought I put a picture of Hitler. I mean, we have 23 floors, and that news went through those 23 floors like a wildfire. And there were bar complaints. People actually filed bar complaints. And of course, all the bar complaints were dismissed. And I can remember before they would file the complaint, some people come and say, hey, why don't you take that down? Well, you know, people are upset. You better take that down. And I said, not on your life will I take that down. And I never did. And it's still in my courtroom. And it really is funny because back about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a flood. I'm on the top floor, but the Justice Center keeps all their water tanks above me. So they burst and my courtroom was flooded. In fact, 3 floors were flooded. So luckily I had just pulled out Obama's picture before that night for some, because he was no longer president. I was like, well, maybe I'll take it down. So it was out of my courtroom so it didn't get damaged. So we're back, you know, doing law about a year later. And the same attorney who had filed the bar complaint was now in my courtroom. I jumped off the bench, I went and got the picture and I hung it back up, and that's where the picture stays at today. So the answer to your question, yes, we do face different discrimination, but it's just how you handle it. And I'm known for not playing that.
Thank you, and I love the story.
That's funny. Yeah, I think it shows up in different ways. It's never overt,
Right.
You know, but it shows up in different ways. I would add racism, sexism, and ageism as well, because I find a lot of times I get attorneys who want to tell me that they've been practicing law for 30 or 40 years and maybe this is how it should go. And I'm like, thank you for your recommendation, but this is how it's actually going to go. And I've had lawyers tell me, you know, I've been practicing long enough to have, you know, so many gray hairs on my head. And I just try to make light of the situation and say, look, I hear you, but I pay a lot of money to make sure you can't see the grays in mine. And, you know, we just move on from there. But it never comes across overtly. What I will say is that for us as magistrate judges, just as at any other level of, except for the United States Supreme Court, you can appeal decisions. And I don't know if it probably can just as easily be chalked up to them testing out the new judge. But I do recall there being a lot more sort of objections to the magistrate judge's opinion in year one than there are probably now. But thankfully, the bench that I have, the district court judges that I have, and it's 16 district court judges and 5 magistrate judges here in the Eastern District of Louisiana. Thankfully, they've been very supportive across party lines, across gender lines, across racial lines. And so I think because they very quickly said this objection is dismissed over and over and over, particularly in places where I had the discretion to make certain decisions before me, then I think those just started to be filed less frequently. And so, you know, like I said, they're never going to come out and say that those are the reasons, whether or not there were more objections filed to my reports than there were to some of my neighbors or colleagues who came on the bench before me. I mean, like right before me or after me. I don't know, because I think my personality, and I'm always talking to my chief judge about this. My personality is just to sort of keep my head down and get my work done. So I really can't tell you what the other people around me are doing necessarily. But I think there are ways that it shows up that's just not overt.
And the same question to you, Judge Henderson, if you can add on to what Judge Douglas and Judge Williams had to explain to us.
So I just think I would echo a lot of what they said. I'm new to the bench. I've only been on the bench since July, so I really haven't had those issues. Most of what not anything overt. What I've had has been a lot of what Judge Douglas talked about. I have a lot of people say to me how long they've been practicing and that sort of thing. I think that is the biggest thing that I get. And then I think I have at times people who want to try and talk over me. And so, but I think after I assert myself one time or show them that I mean business one time, then I think it's understood and it doesn't have to be explained again. But I think it takes that one time for them to really understand that you're not going to sit here and walk over me. You may think that I'm kind and I'm nice, and I am and I intend to be, but you will respect me. And so I think after, I have that a couple times, there's, really hasn't been an issue.
So let me ask how did you choose? Because we're blessed today to have both federal magistrate judges and state court judges. How did you choose to become a state court judge as opposed to a federal magistrate judge, and the same vice versa? We can start with you, Judge Henderson.
So for me, I had only really practiced in federal court. So that was all I really knew. The majority of my legal career, I served as an assistant United States attorney. So, and then before that, I was a law clerk in federal court. So I really understood federal court. I didn't have much time practicing in state court. And I'm also not from Cleveland. I came there to work. I hadn't really developed a big network. I wasn't really involved a lot politically. So running an election and campaigning wasn't something that I really saw myself as being able to do. And becoming a federal magistrate judge, you're appointed by the district court judges. And so one thing I did know is I know all of these judges, right? I practice in front of all of these judges every day. They all know me, and that's who would be selecting me. So that seemed like a process that I could, that was doable. And it was a process I understood, and I understood the job of a magistrate judge and what they did. And I knew that that would be something that I would enjoy.
And Judge Collier-Williams, could you build on that?
Well, just recently there has been there's an opening. There's 3 openings in federal court, right? So I looked at the application, and that application is onerous. So now when you're running for state court, all you got to do is get to the people, you smile, you let them know that, hey, law and order and justice and fairness, and hope that they vote for you. Whereas in the federal system, you're selected. And, so you've got to fill out this long application and you go through all this and all that. I just think that being elected is easier. So, and I never thought about doing the federal way. I just think that, and I've gone to different seminars in different states, and there are some judges who are appointed, even in the state level, and some that are elected. And the ones that are appointed, they go, wow, I don't know how you can do the elected. Oh my God, the election, you got to do this, you got to campaign. And then those of us who are elected, we say, oh, I don't know how you can be appointed, because, where I'm from, they may not pick a Black female. They may not pick this or that, and that's the one thing that kind of concerned a lot of us, because we feel that at least if you go to the people, they can see you and they can make a choice and vote for you. Whereas sometimes in the federal thing, if you're not politically connected, if you're a Republican when a Democrat is in power, you don't get a chance to do that. If you're a Democrat when a Republican, then you're not going to get the consideration because you're the wrong party. So all of those things, and I just think running is a little bit easier. Anybody can do it.
Well, I think it's all politics. It's just a different type of politics for running for a elected position as opposed to an appointed position. I think it's all about networking and relationship building, just in different ways. For both Judge Henderson and I, it sounds like we were both appointed by district court judges in a Republican administration. So, you know, the positions for magistrate judges are a lot more local politics than they are national politics. As you get up into some of the other levels of federal government, you are more dependent on who, you know, maybe the party and race of the senators or the presidential politics at the time, but not necessarily so much for magistrate judges. And so I mean, I don't know. I want to say I felt like I was coming back home to federal court, because when I graduated from law school, the first job I had was to clerk in federal court, and I missed the experience that I had there. But I also spent a considerable amount of time while my mother was working in the state court system, getting to know and sort of running around the courthouse with my high school uniform, you know, then. So I was very familiar with both branches of government. I just really enjoyed the work that I was doing at the federal level. But that's not to say that if I wasn't where I am now, that I would not have elected to do something different. This is just sort of where the stars aligned.
Thank you. Well, out here, and I'm sure it happens nationwide, you'll hear someone ask for a legal referral and say, I have a client who has a case dealing with XYZ, and that's outside my expertise, and they seek referrals. And in a lot of times you'll see a female get referred who, you know, is pretty well qualified. And then you see the males start to comment, don't send it to her. She's not good. She's not qualified. She's not this. She's not that. With that in mind, when did you personally feel you had you were qualified to, and what made you feel like you were qualified to throw your name in the hat to become a judge? Let's start with you, Judge Douglas.
So that's a very difficult question. I think I had a couple of judges, both on the state and federal bench, who suggested to me that it might be something that I might want to think about and try out. And like I said, I think it was something that was innate for me that I had been thinking about since my senior high school yearbook. So, you know, it was always on my radar. I went back and forth. You know, when you're in a law firm for as long as I was, there were a lot of years that I really, really enjoyed what I was doing. And then there were some years where, you know, I might not have enjoyed it so much. And so there were a couple of opportunities that came to pass before I tried out this time. And I passed those over because I was so involved in what I was doing at the time. And then, you know, there were a couple of times that I was asked to do a letter of recommendation for some colleagues of mine who I realized their resumes were almost identical to mine, or even folks that I was sort of mentoring along the way. And so you kind of get to a place where you say, okay, then maybe the time is now, you know, and just start talking to some people about it, to just sort of, you know, test the wind and kind of see, you know, what the temperature is, and see what other folks might think about it, I suppose. But I don't know if you ever really know when you are qualified. I do think that for us as Black women, that bar seems a little bit higher than it is for other folks. I certainly think that, you know, if it weren't for me putting myself out there to be president of some organizations and associations that other people I was competing against were flouting their membership in, then, you know, I might not be here. I do feel like we had to go, you know, extra 5 or 10 miles in the community work that we did, or in our level of practice or years of experience and things of that nature. I do think that bar is a little bit higher. So I don't know that you ever really know when you're qualified.
Thank you so much. And Judge Collier-Williams, can you address that same issue?
Sure. In Ohio, you have to practice 6 years in order to run for judge. 6 years. So what I find is a lot of people with a certain name that is electable in Cuyahoga County, they some of them they're putting their hat out there at their 8th year, their 7th year, their 9th year, and they really don't have a whole lot of experience. They're just going out there, and sometimes they win, and they're on the bench. They can literally be on the bench for 40 years because the once you turn 70 in Ohio, you can no longer run for judge, so for state court. So for myself, I knew I was qualified. I mean, I had done everything. I've done contracts, construction work, criminal work, civil work, big cases, small cases, malpractice. I mean, I really had done a wide spectrum. You know, I was, when I was in my practice early on, I was litigate because my client was the government, so I was always traveling. I'm barred in Wisconsin. I'm barred in Michigan. I'm in the Ohio, the federal Supreme Court, all in the federal districts. So I knew I was qualified. What's funny is once you get on the bench and you go and look at some of your colleagues, and they've done nothing. They've done nothing. And that's when you really see that, my God, you know, because all the African Americans are there, their resume is packed, is stacked, is full of everything. They've done all this work. And some of the others, they've had, you know, they've really done nothing. And we have a lot of community work that we've done. They've done nothing. So to answer your question, when did I know I was qualified? I knew I was qualified a long time ago. I probably could have ran a lot earlier in my life, and I wish I had, because by only being on the bench in 2012, I mean, I think the max I can be on now is another 10 years or so. So yes.
And then Judge Henderson, I'll pose the same question to you since you're the newest member of the federal bench. This, I think, is right up your alley.
I think that it's more like Judge Douglas for me. I don't know if I actually knew. I knew this was a dream that I had. It was always a dream that I had, but not something I really talked about to people because, you know, you can't share your dreams with everyone. Everyone's not going to be supportive or happy for you in those things. And so but it was a dream. And as I was working as a prosecutor, it would just be weird because I would have agents who would come to me at times and they would just randomly say, you would make a great judge. You're going to be a judge one day. And so as other people started to say that to me and really see that in me, I felt that was powerful. So that really spoke to me that other people saw that side of me and they saw that as something that I would be good at. And then, you know, around the time there was a bankruptcy judge spot that was open here in the Northern Ohio. And we recently did have a African-American woman bankruptcy judge appointed as well. And when that spot opened up, one of my friends who had started with me at the U.S. Attorney's Office told me about that spot and was trying to encourage me to apply. And the fact that she was even talking about me and applying for a position was like, wait, what am I at a point where I can do that? Do I have enough years in? I really wasn't sure of myself. And the fact that she was saying it, though, made me reach out and talk to the judge that I had clerked for. And I knew that position wasn't for me because I didn't know anything about bankruptcy. So I'm like, well, I'm sure that that's not for me. But it really made me think about magistrate judge positions. And if one opened in the future, would it be something I wanted to do? And the fact that he didn't completely laugh at me and he felt that I was also, you know, qualified really gave me the support I needed. And I think so often as, you know, Black women, we think that we put the bar up here and we think we need so much. But let me tell you, these white men, they don't look at themselves and tell themselves they're not qualified. If they want something, they apply. And so I started thinking like that. I was like, you know, I'm going to think about a white man. I'm going to apply and all they can do is tell me no. And so I put my application in and I put it in thinking, you know, even if they do tell me no, this is great experience. Most people don't get it their first time. Judge Williams talked to you about the long application process. So it's like, I'll have this ready, and that way I can use it again. Also, it would get me in front of the judges. If my goal was to just get an interview with the judges, because then they could start thinking of me in that light. And so then when I was practicing in front of them, they wouldn't just see me as the AUSA, but they would see me as someone who aspired to be their colleague, and they would think about whether or not they saw me in that light. So I really felt I had nothing to lose. And I put my name in the hat. I applied, gave it my all. And thankfully, I was selected for the position. And so, I think really thinking about qualified, I started thinking about that when I was in the interviews with the panel, because they would ask me those questions. And it was something they really asked because of my age. And, they really would hound me on my age, my years of experience, and why I felt I was more qualified. And, one of the things I had to tell them is, no, I don't have the same amount of years of experience. I do not have the same age, but the diversity of my experience is what I felt made me qualified. The fact that most of the applicants they saw either had experience on the civil side or on the criminal side, and they didn't see many like me who had experience on the civil and the criminal side. And everything that a magistrate judge did in some way, I had been connected to, whether it was as an AUSA or in civil practice or as a law clerk. So in those points, answering their questions, I really started to feel it more. But I don't think you know until you get in the position and really see that you can do it. And even now, there are times when there are things it's like, I don't know, but I don't act like I know the answer to everything. When I don't know the answer, I reach out to my other colleagues on the bench. If I'm in front of the parties and they want to tell me something, I am open to listen. I am always still learning, and I am always able to be corrected. I never think of myself more highly than I should. So I think that is what makes me qualified.
Thank you so much. What advice, I'm thinking we may have some of our students on joining us. What advice would you have for students who are pursuing a career, either they're seniors at Miami and thinking of pursuing a career in the law, or they're currently in law school? What advice would you have for them if they thought that they were going to be eventually pursuing either a federal judge or a state court judge role? Can we start with Judge Collier-Williams?
My advice would be, if that's what you want to do, go for it. Don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anybody tell you, hey, it's not your time. It's not your turn. Wait. If you really believe that you want to be a judge, then you go for it. I like the idea that, I think it was Judge Henderson who said that her mother had told her that, you don't necessarily major in political science if you want to go into law school. And I believe that also. You probably should major in English or something where you can use, if you really want to be a lawyer, do English or something where you can learn how to write really, really well, because that's mostly what we do, is read and write. But if you're in law school, just work hard and do the type of law that you want to do. What you'll find is that even though in law school, you may say, God, I really love this criminal law class, or I really love this contract class, or I really love that. Sometimes your first job is completely different from where you thought you were going to go in law. And that just gives you more experience, and you still have the opportunity to change to something that you really want. But if you want to be a judge and you're out there practicing, you keep that in your mind and you go for it. One of the things in Cuyahoga County, they love to tell you, if you're African American, it's not your turn. If you could just wait another year or two, or another, and you wait, and then when that comes, if you could just wait a little bit longer, one day it'll be your turn. And sometimes you have to say, it's my turn now, and just go for it, which is what I did. And you never know what's going to happen. But I just encourage you to hold on to your dreams and don't give up.
Thank you. And Judge Douglas, would you mind responding to that as well?
I was going to say writing is important as well. I think when I entered law school, I thought that I needed to be a political science major, or at least take a number of classes in political science to know what was going on. Not necessarily the case. I do think it's good to sort of be familiar with the way things work. I don't know that civics is as critical of a class as you're coming up through high school and whatnot as it used to be back in the day. I'm probably dating myself, but political science is probably good to have some knowledge of it. I think the students at Miami have an advantage over the time period when I was in school. I don't recall us having a pre-law sort of a program or curriculum that was available to us at that time. I did take a political science related capstone class when I was there with Professor Augustus Jones, who just so happened to be from New Orleans. And I think really helped me learn how to write as a lawyer. I do agree that classes, my colleagues who had taken classes like English, even some of the education, I think folks who had studied in education who kind of really understood how to break down. I think I have this theory that people who sort of can know how to write a lesson plan do really, really well in law school for some reason. I had a lot of teachers who were my colleagues who decided to go into a second career and I think really excelled in the practice of law. I don't know if it has something to do with those analytical skills or what have you that come along with that. But writing is very, very important. And so I would try to find every opportunity that I could to get experience in writing. And I think the writing in law school is different, though, than you might get in an English or a literature class. And I think that's what Augustus Jones was really good at distilling for us as writers when I took that capstone class. So I think that's important. And I think another thing that I would keep in mind is that if you do have a dream, regardless to whether or not it's something that has ever been done before, I would just work really hard at it. If the path has not been created towards that position, then, find out what it takes for you to create the blueprint to make that happen. Certainly when I was at Miami or in law school, we never thought we were gonna have a Black woman as the vice president of the United States, but it's here and it's happening. So I would never back burner my dreams just because it may be something that was never done before. I can tell you that there had never been a Black female partner at Lisco & Lewis Law Firm when I graduated from law school. That had never happened before. There had never been a Black female president of our local bar association. I think I was the second one by the time I matriculated through the process. And now I think I am serving under the first Black female chief judge that we've ever had in the Eastern District of Louisiana. So there are a lot of things that, if any of us thought maybe this is not a path that I should go down because nobody's ever been successful at this before, that, it may have deterred us. So I would just make sure that if you have those dreams, to just work towards them, even if that path has not been created.
Thank you. And Judge Henderson, the same question for you.
I would echo everything they said to, stick with your dreams. I think, whatever you do it well. Take pride in whatever you do it well, and be cautious about how you treat people and about, how you carry yourself and what your reputation is. Because no matter how you're becoming a judge, no matter what method, whether it's going to be on the federal side or whether you're going to be elected, people are going to be talking about you. And, they care a lot about that. A lot of the people that they call in the federal process are your opposing counsel. They don't just care about the people that you're friendly with. They want to know, what are opposing counsel going to say about you? And that's what you should be thinking about when you're interacting with people. You want to be collegial and you want to have that. You want people to respect you. They might not always agree with you, but they should respect you. They should respect your work. And so you want to always make sure that that is how you carry yourself. And so I think that is something that I would add that is important.
Thank you. And then I have a question for those that are watching and who may be practicing. I know here in Colorado, we are back to in-person trials in some of the state courts. And what are first of all, if you could tell us if you are back to in-person trials, and second, what tips do you have for those practitioners who may be on the brink of heading into an in-person trial during the jury trial at the time of COVID? Could we start with Judge Douglas?
So we are still in a virtual setting for the most part. We sort of converted from in-person proceedings to virtual proceedings in March of last year. We've been doing hearings. There are some judges who have started to do bench trials even by Zoom. There may be 1 or 2 judges who have started to do bench trials in person. But we have decided to continue all jury trials until May, because there is a different sort of strategy and thought process that has to go into jury selection and making sure you are able to get people together in a setting that they are comfortable enough in to sit there for a significant amount of time and give due course to the decision-making process. And so we have not started that yet. The plan is for us to start doing jury trials again in May. But I tell counsel all the time, we originally thought we would be back in April, and then we thought we might be back in May, and then August, and then November, and then January. And I had all my money set on March, and that didn't happen. And now that date is set for May. I do think that we'll at least probably try to go forward with at least 1 jury trial to see how that works out. That's just my prediction. But we probably won't know that for a couple of more weeks until the court meets again en banc to make that decision. Advice for people who are going back into in-person proceedings. I think certainly as vaccinations become more available to people, we will have more in-person proceedings going forward. I would just suggest to you all to be patient more than anything else. What I tell people here is that we have been through crisis and tragedies before. I can remember being a very young lawyer when 9/11 happened and the world it felt like it stopped. And at the time I was working in a building in Louisiana that was the tallest building in the state of Louisiana. And so even if I sort of extended the handle on my briefcase, everybody would stop and turn around because everybody was so on edge about what was going on. And I think for a long period of time, we didn't know what life was going to look like in the practice of law after September 11th happened. Certainly, it was a very tragic situation. And there are some things that came out of 9/11 that we still live with in terms of travel security issues, building security, court security, things of that nature. Here in New Orleans, we also had Hurricane Katrina. And again, we left New Orleans thinking we were leaving for a weekend, and some of us were gone for months or years, and some people have never returned to the city of New Orleans. And I think at the time, none of us knew what the practice of law was going to look like once we were able to get back to our offices and back to our computers. We didn't have the remote technology that exists now. At the time that took place in 2005. And certainly this is the pandemic offers us a different type of crisis situation, but I do believe that we will come out of this and we will go back to some sort of a normal. It won't be the same normal, but we'll get back to some sort of normalcy, and there will be lessons and things that we learn that come out of this that will make our practices as lawyers and members of the judiciary stronger and more efficient. There may be different things that are taken into consideration in terms of whether or not we do video conference technology for lots of different things going forward. I mean, I don't know how that's going to look, but I think we'll be fine at some point whenever we can get back to normal. But I would just tell everybody to be patient with each other until we figure out what that new normal looks like.
Thank you. And Judge Collier-Williams, the same question for you.
Well, first of all, we are not back in jury trial. We tried to come back in September, I believe it was, and we did it for maybe a couple months, and not on the same scale that we did prior to COVID, but we did it, I think we were doing maybe 2 or 3 trials a week. The Justice Center prior to COVID we would be seeing thousands of people every week, probably close, no, I would say thousands a day in some instances. So we were down to only 2 people can be in the elevator at a time. So we had to drastically cut back. So like I said, we tried to do trials. I'm on the jury committee. So we thought of how we can do social distancing. We put up plexiglass everywhere. In each jury box, it is plexiglass on both sides, so you can sit there. The juror will get face masks, shields, so you can see their face, because everybody wants to see people's faces. So we have shields for them during that. But then we suspended them again, and now we're due to start back in April 26th, actually, and we will start with, I think, 3 trials a week. Sort of the good thing that came out of all of this is we realize and now recognize that we can do a lot of stuff by Zoom or remotely. If you had told me this time last year, hey, you can do your sentences, you can do your pleas right from your house, put your robe on, turn your camera on, and boom, everybody's there, I would have said, what are you talking about? But that's where we're at now. I mean, we do all kinds of things by Zoom. The court reporter's on Zoom. Everybody's there. So I think out of this, like Judge Douglas said, we're not going to go back to the way we were completely, because now we have this option here that's a great option, and that is remote technology now. So it really makes a huge difference in how we adjudicate our cases. We normally do a number of things. Right now, each judge can only bring in people 2 days a week. So on a Monday and Wednesday, I can bring folks down. They have to be staggered to make sure you're not bringing a whole lot of people. Everything is socially distant. Everybody has to wear masks. Everybody is scanned when they come in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're getting through it. We're litigating. I mean, my cases are moving. The civil cases are moving. The criminal cases, they're moving. A lot of people are doing bench trials. We've never stopped doing bench trials in the state court level. If you want a bench trial, you'll get a bench trial. The only thing we stopped were the jury trials. So I hope that answered your question. I can't remember the other part of it. I think I did.
Yes, no, it does. It's,
Okay.
It definitely does. And then Judge Henderson, if you could please answer the same question, and then I'll have one last question to conclude with.
All right, thank you. So our courthouse is closed right now. We are doing everything basically by Zoom as well. However, we did at some point, similar to what Judge Williams said, we did go back and try out a few trials. And as the numbers were going up, we decided not to do that. And when we did that, we used a lot of the same precautions that she talked about. However, right now we have done some Zoom bench trials. We currently have our first Zoom jury trial going on. So it's not a criminal trial, but they did do it for a civil trial. So our criminal trials are suspended until May right now, but judges can elect to do jury trials for civil trials. And so they're working that out. I know there was a lot that went into that with IT. They really had to make available, the means for some of the jurors to, be able to get on the internet, whether they had to give them an iPad or a laptop or something to use. So I guess we'll hear when that trial is over, whether or not they believe that was a success, but that is something that we're doing right now. But yeah, really, we've just been doing everything virtually. I think the hardest part about it has just been, have to learn how to be patient. Just because, I know with me, for a lot of the initial proceedings that I do, the first time now that counsel will see their client is on Zoom. So I just regularly have my courtroom deputy, as soon as the counsel gets on, ask them, do you need a breakout room? And so now, I don't expect that when I set something at 10 a.m. that we start at 10 a.m. I expect that 10 a.m. that they get on, the jail puts the defendant on as well. And then he goes into a breakout room, he or she, and they're able to talk to the attorney. And then when they're done with that conversation, we start. And, you know, I just give them the time to do that because I understand the situation that we're in and that it's a really hard situation for them to communicate with clients. And so I just think, you know, you have to be patient and, you know, figure those things out and just take things as they go. But, you know, it seems to have been working well. For me, it's a little bit different than everyone else. Since I've started, we've been doing this. So I have never actually sat on the bench. So when we actually go back to doing things as normal one day, it'll be really nice for me to finally sit on the bench.
That's funny. Well, we have time for one more question and probably for one more answer. And we had a question that came in. What skills would you consider important for current college students to work on in order to succeed in law school? And we probably only have time for one more judge. Judge Douglas, would you mind taking this one on for us?
Let's see. So we talked about the writing skills. I think I mentioned before that I think relationship building and networking are very important. You'll find that the relationships that you're building now in college can serve you for, 20 years from now as you move along in your career. I have one person that I met here in New Orleans who happened to be a Miami alum. It doesn't happen often that I get to meet people in New Orleans who actually went to Miami University in Ohio. But there is one who I think is actually on the Zoom call, and her husband happens to be one of the marshals in our building right now. And so you just never know how those connections are going to come back around. So relationship building and networking are very, 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 very important. I think that's the thing that I would add to that. We didn't have, though, I said we didn't have a pre-law curriculum set up for us. We also didn't have social media when I was at Miami. And so I would also be very mindful. I think Judge Henderson made a very good point that your reputation sometimes will walk into the room before you do. So I would add, certainly you're in college. These are, as the cliche goes, some of the best years of your life. But I would also be very, kind of cautious of spending those best years on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram because, some of those things never go away. I didn't have that to contend with, but I certainly would caution people who are in school and living their best life these days to be aware of that.
Thank you so much.
And I think that's time. I just want to thank all of our judges today. Court was in session today. We're getting the knowledge today. We thank Allison Aylor, who's a wonderful alum who assists students now, engages with students now. And these judges are three of 7 Black women judges that have graduated from Miami that are currently serving. So hope everybody enjoyed what we listened today. Feel free to watch a replay of this or watch other previous events as well. And with that being said, love and honor and take care.